Oh,
I like your nose.
with the crazy mandala behind him.
Oh, wait. Let me change that. I'm having, yeah, there we go. So,
We got all this technology going on this week.
and we actually got it to work as far as
We did. It's crazy because we start pretty much every episode of Chocolatier Chat on Fridays with Brian talking about being a technological Luddite. And I bought these really sassy new earbuds on Amazon this week, and I can't get them to work, so I'm still wired up. Like, I was so excited, and then like today, like I was on a Zoom, and they're like, "We can't hear you," and I'm like, "Great." So we've gone back to wired.
We got the Clot ear pods.
Hey,
so.
do you sell those? Maybe I should order a set of those. Maybe those
Yeah,
will work
we buy them from Apple and mark them up, and we do go out and sell you some. So.
Cool. Yeah, I went the Chinese route and bought the $15 pair on Amazon, and it's really not. Surprisingly, it is not working the way that the $100 pair of Apple iPads.
I think they have the 240 ones now, which I didn't need to go there. But they're truly amazing in production, and I can use them as long as I don't touch them.
Yeah, I'll try to make, maybe I'll go talk to Tom and see if like that's a justifiable business expense with the sassy new stand that we bought this week. So I don't have the iPad propped up on like a couple towels and a phone book.
Very cool.
Do the kids know what phone books are these days? Have they heard of those things?
I don't think so.
Hey, so it's kind of cool. We got like 30 people with us, Chris.
Okay.
A lot of people who have been checking in with us every week. And, really the goal has been that we're going to just jab about stuff that we know about, which is like chocolate and the chocolate industry and chocolate and maybe the industry, right. Sort of the gist has been like in a lot of ways, we spent a couple minutes kind of talking about what's going on in the world, and wow. Hey, Chris, Susan Notter's here.
Hey, Susan Notter. Talk about OG.
I know, like now I'm nervous. Like, are you nervous now? Because I was nervous before, but now I'm like super nervous. Like, but anyway, the world's a little goofy, which we all know about. And Susan said hi back to us, by the way.
Oh yeah.
The world's goofy. It's obviously affecting everybody's business. I mean, both of us work in industry. We both work in the food industry, so we're still around and still. Susan's, by the way, telling us to chill. So,
okay.
Keep that in mind. Susan says chill, so we must chill.
I just want an autograph. That's all.
Yeah. But we've had to change how we do business. So, how are you personally? Let's start with that. Like, how are things? Like, how's things with you?
Pretty hilarious because it seems like everything goes wrong. That like my truck and my transmission went and things like that. So even simple things now, to send your car to the garage, you have to have it fixed and you have to sanitize afterwards. So I mean, I could give you. It's like I say to everyone, it's not a competition, but I think everyone's sort of dealing with their own little personal crises in one way or another. So it's really interesting what's going on in that way. We've been, I was working in Japan for Valentine's week and I flew back, and that's now 2 months ago. We were wearing masks in production. Yeah. Right when I came back, because we sort of assumed we knew what was coming our way. And then we closed our store over a month ago. We closed on March 12th. So we're sort of ahead of the curve that way. Just, there's too much press. There's too much, we're still figuring out what everyone was telling us. We couldn't really believe what everyone was telling us. And now we've sort of settled into, okay, now I think we know what we're dealing with. So we're going to open up again just for, no contact pickup, not even curbside, but absolutely no contact with a table in front of our store where we put it down, people come and leave. And because to me, the most important thing is my staff and the team and the community, and also just, there's some things worth more than economics. So, but it's been amazingly supportive of everyone that we know and like a clot. So, yeah.
So for people that don't know, you are the chef chocolatier, owner operator of Eclat Chocolat in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Westchester is 30-45 minutes from downtown Philly, depending on right now. It's about 7 minutes.
Now it's a half hour. Realistically, it's probably 45 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my last trip from downtown Philadelphia in the snowstorm, it took an hour and a half. But was that the last time? I think that was the last time that I was at the shop. Was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But
Things have
And
changed.
yeah,
You haven't seen our new building, so.
well, no, I've got the tour of the new building. You were just moving in when I was there.
Ah, okay.
Um, Look at that. Eclat chocolate is easily the best chocolate you could ever eat. By the way, in the
Let me write
comments,
that name down. They'll make sure they get
their cousin get their
their
vague.
$20. So
I would take it as a gift card. But how long? We were talking about. Chris and I talked a little bit on the phone yesterday, kind of to get a little prep for this conversation. But how long have you been open now?
this is our 15th year. So it's kind of ironic that we're planning a big 15-year push and banners and all that. And the banners, of course, have not been hung out yet or anything like that. But I've been open now a year longer than I was in Europe. So it's kind of ironic somehow.
And you are in business with who?
Myself?
I don't know. I mean,
so yeah, it's all self-funded.
so that's what I meant. I was leaning towards that conversation. I was, trying to come up.
It's a tough call. It's nice to be your own boss, but sometimes if we had investors, it would give us the possibility of growing faster and bigger, and depending on what we want. We have the skill set from where I worked in Europe to do large scale production, and we do fairly large scale production here, as you know. But it's so far, an investor really needs to bring in another set of skills that we don't have. So that's, we haven't found that match yet. But I'm not against it. It's just it's kind of nice being this scrappy little business that's
So not headed to Shark Tank quite yet, is what you're saying.
No, I mean, to me, I think we're still more chefs than businessmen. And, I think we all, there's a switch that goes on where like, oh my God, I need to retire. I better figure out how to make enough money. So, but we like it how it is. We get to do some really amazing projects with some amazing chefs, and, we're all the way across the board from doing some craft stuff to doing, sort of interesting work with some interesting hotels. We work a little bit in Japan. Korea's a possibility. So we're actually, like I say, the largest unknown chocolate company in the States, it seems, because our fingers are everywhere, but most people know about Eclat.
Right. So I guess that's the question. Which way do we want to go? Do we want to go with your story first? Why don't we go with your story first? Tell me a little bit about, like, where you're from, like, how'd you get into chocolate, all that good stuff.
Originally from Madison, Wisconsin. Went to high school there.
Go Badgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you said Wisconsin, you've said it all. I'm actually wearing my Tom Rick jacket, not my Wisconsin jacket today. So
as a Philly boy, you can get away with that. So
I love Madison.
Yeah.
We're about the same age though, right? Probably. We're pretty close.
I think I'm a few years older, but I'm 50, I think 55.
Yeah, you're a couple years older than me. But Madison, while we're on Madison, because I love Madison, I mean, Madison's got kind of a cool little chocolate scene going on too. I mean, it's been around there have been some people that have been there for a long time. They've got some people that are newer to the scene, but I mean, they've got a kind of cool food scene in Madison that I think chocolate was early.
Yeah, it's
eclectic.
Kind of an Austin. Yeah, it's kind of an Austin. Like there's certain like Boulder, Austin, Madison. I think are kind of these smaller. I don't know what the population of Austin is now, but it's definitely Madison's like 200,000, I think now.
Right, and
you can't grow much because of the lakes.
Right, but I mean, I think it's also there's a large group of people that are not, obviously from Wisconsin or Madison, and then international, lots of international students and professors and grad students and all that, which I think contributes to some of that ability to be innovative, or at least early adopters to things. I mean, if you think about people like Gail Ambrosius, who's been there for a long time, one of the really first artisan chocolatiers in the U.S.
I think Candinas is so much. I mean, Candinas, he started Marcus. I worked for his father, mounting skis and bindings and things. So he's early 90s, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they were really. I mean, they were. You could have plunked Candinas up from any European city and plunked it in Wisconsin, the way they did business and the way they thought about chocolate, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's, and that they obviously had success throughout North America. It wasn't just in Madison, but I mean, those are definitely two examples of kind of what I think I'm talking about. Maybe.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
So, I mean, yeah, Madison is, but I used to ski race, and there's not much money in cross country ski racing. So I decided to go into the culinary arts, and then was a student at uh, a school in Montpelier, Vermont. And I wasn't really learning what I thought. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go to Europe. And what turned out to be a year, or I thought was going to be a year, turned out to be 14 years. And worked all over in Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, Japan. And sort of approached the school to do my master's exam there. And since I hadn't done the sort of the apprenticeship program, they said, where did you work? And I, worked at some nice 5-star restaurants in the States and in around Colorado also. And somehow I got accepted into the exam. So I did the 5-day exam, pretty much consists of 3-day practical exam, a written exam, and then there's an oral exam at the end with the Ubermeisters, which drill you with
Where
questions.
were you where were you at this point?
This is in Cologne,
Okay.
Germany.
Got it. And you speak, I mean, obviously English,
Sometimes, yeah.
a little German.
Yeah, German is fluent, French is Japanese, so yeah, it's funny how little words you need to work in the kitchen. With 20 words, you can pretty much, give me that, hand me that, faster.
Yeah, I had a French chef at one time that said the day that I could count to 5, I got a promotion. If I could count to 5 in French, because he knew I was going to figure out eggs and flour. That was kind of it. But you were doing culinary or pastry at that point?
I started out as a cook. Didn't really, then I went into pastry. Andrew McLaughlin actually wrote me, for those who know who he is, he wrote Becoming a Pastry Chef, or How to Become a Pastry Chef.
Right.
And he wrote my letter to get me into New England Culinary. And so then I went to pastry at the Flagstaff House there. And then after Europe, once I was in Europe, then I did chocolate, pastries, small breads. That's basically what the exam is. You have to do chocolate, showpieces, small breads, all that within 3 days. So
easy peasy lemon squeezy.
That was easier, obviously, for me than doing everything in German. You literally had questions on, certain age groups, how long they can work, apprenticeship program, if they're 14, what hours they can work, and you even had bookkeeping and things like that in the exam. So it's extremely thorough. It's not just about the culinary arts.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt for a second because one of your Ecuadorian friends is saying hello.
We knew each other, or we know each other?
We know each other in Peru, it looks like.
Who was that?
And, hey, I'll get it for you later. I can scroll back through later. And Susan Nader is saying that your test wasn't all that easy. It takes a lot of courage. So now you're super nervous because she's giving you props.
Because he knows Herr Schindler. And Herr Schindler was, we won't say anything. Let's see how Monica Glass is there. Hello.
So thanks, Bella, for loving Chris's chocolate. So you take this test, and you did okay.
I got through it. Yeah.
It's a pass-fail, right?
Yes.
So you passed.
Yeah.
And now you're the real deal. Now you're Mr. Tough Guy. Now you can do whatever you want. Your ticket's written.
No, I think, then I sort of decided where I wanted to work for what I wanted to learn. And had the opportunity in Cologne to live in this house called Le Compagnon de Devoir, which sort of means the companion of duty. And they're the ones who restore old cathedrals. And they do all the old artisan restorations in Europe, and they're the premier guild of bricklayers, painters. They do all that stone carving. And a friend of mine was working on the Louvre, and so I got to go up on the top of the roof there. And so they're really an amazing, from the Middle Ages type of, guild. And after that, you can pretty much pick where you want to work. So after there, I'm like, I really want to go work in Brussels, or I really want to go work in, Switzerland. And they always have connections, and so I got to pick and choose. I worked for Compagnie for certain reasons. I worked for Van Dender and Marcolini for certain reasons. These are people I specifically, wanted to work for this reason or that reason. So,
but ultimately the goal really learning chocolate. Like, I mean, chocolate somewhere along the way became your gig, right?
I mean, pastry is a tough gig in the States, you know. I mean, it's a tough gig anywhere now. I mean, a lot of pastry shops are even closing in Europe. So it's, you know, unless you diversify and go into Japan and things like that, it's just a really, really tough gig. So chocolate, I kind of fell in love with all the different aspects of travel and creativity, and also, you know, the machinery is kind of interesting, and just it's so many different sides to it.
But you came back to the States to open Eclat, fundamentally.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why in Westchester?
My parents retired here. My parents were a little bit older. It was time to spend some time with them before the inevitable. So it was nice. My father was born in Philadelphia. I've learned more about my family history since moving back. I didn't realize that my great great grandfather, like Civil War era, was the governor of Pennsylvania. So we're sort of a bastard side of that.
Got it.
So yeah.
I mean, you know this, and maybe not everybody else is watching. Yay, Philly! I'm a Philly kid too. You know, I grew up in Mount Airy. Went to high school in Germantown. I went to Penn Charter. You know, in Philly, even though Buffalo has kind of become home in a lot of ways, Philly's where the heart is. So I mean, I think that's one of the things that, you know, we've known each other a while. I think that, you know, everybody that's
AUI?
been, what?
Where did we meet? Did I meet you at AUI?
Yeah, we met at AUI. So, you know, we've known each other almost 15 years. I mean, you just opened Eclat, I think, hey, look, somebody else lives in Mount Airy. I lived on West Gowan. I lived on the Circle. You had pretty much just opened. You were doing some work for some people that we did some work with, I think, at the time. You know, not everybody else has signed their NDA, so that's as ambiguous as I'm going to be about that conversation. And, you know, you probably had come up and we're working through some projects together, ultimately, when I was in that kitchen there. I was still with Anil and Amanda, who's still there. And Annette, I think, was coordinating some of that, and Andreas and that whole gaggle of people. Love all, serve all, right? That might belong to somebody else. So the spot you are now, was that the original spot when you opened?
That the store is the original spot. I mean, obviously the new warehouse production area is another 8,000 square feet, so that's a nice improvement. I like to grow, you know, since we are self-funded, I tend to grow very, very, you know, carefully and not make giant steps. So this was sort of our next step, and it's worked out very well. We're very efficient, you know, where we're using, you know, we do use one shot for some projects. And if you look at our size of production at the original store, you know, Marcolini's production per se is no bigger than that. So it's, you know, what he has, the other, God knows, 18,000 square feet or more is, you know, now with the conches and the packaging and all that, you know, sort of additional warehousing that's necessary. But we're quite, yeah, we got some firepower now here, which is nice.
I was telling somebody the story the first time that I came to visit you. You wouldn't let me in your shop.
That's a reoccurring theme, I think. Didn't Christopher Elbow say the same thing to you?
No, he let me in, actually. Oh. He just didn't let me in for long. You didn't let me in. So.
Yeah, you know. I tend to have that.
It's you worked for Candinas for a while. Another person that wouldn't let me into their production shop. In fact, they wouldn't even. They escorted me down.
For them. I worked for them for a week in Switzerland.
Got it. Because
we know we grew up together, so it's like, hey, you're in Switzerland, let me come down.
Yeah, so I was escorted to the break room. We had a conversation in the break room where Marcus told me that Facebook was never going to go anywhere, and then escorted me out of the building because he had chocolate to make. It's okay.
Yeah, I've definitely loosened up with showing people my kitchen. So.
No, but you know, I mean, I get it too. I mean, like, you do a lot of work for a lot of different people, right? I mean, I think that was your answer that day, and I like giving you a hard time about it more than that. It really hurt my feelings.
You should.
You know, I mean, 4 sessions later with my therapist, and I'd completely forgotten about that resentment. But
you did send me that bill, but
yeah, I mean. But, you know, I mean, you do a lot of work for a lot of different people. I alluded to that earlier. Some of it private label-ish, some of it joint projects. There's some proprietary stuff that you do. I mean, I think that's the hard part about this industry, too. I mean, we're really giving and free with information, but when we're doing something for somebody else, they may not want us to really share that, right?
Right. I mean, some of the people I've worked with, obviously, there's a strict, like, you know, like one employment, you know, we have obviously a confidentiality clause, and someone was talking about, oh yeah, I was telling someone you have a one shot. I'm like, don't don't tell someone that we have a one shot, because that might be okay, but the other machine left to it, it's not okay to tell people we have. So, it's unfortunately you don't always know what should be, let out there and what's not. I mean, the one shot is just so useful in so many ways, and we've had that for 5 years. That's very useful for a lot of different projects.
Right, but I mean, you have a pretty wide swath of equipment from a bunch of different manufacturers. I mean, that's my setup to remind everybody that you do have at least one Selmy in your arsenal of equipment.
When people ask, like, young chocolatiers, I feel old now, like, what would I start out with? I mean, at Van Dender, we did 5 shops plus a couple shops in Japan at the time, and we had 2 Selmies, and we were able to produce everything for that amount. So if I was to start this again, I was younger, I would just get 2 Selmies, 3 Selmies, and just make shelled stuff, and you can make so much. It's like
over
amazing.
my shoulder is, I don't know if you can see it, is the
exactly.
the depositor, right? So that's one. That way, there's a guitar. I don't know if I can show it. I'm worried. Hold on, let's see. So over there's a guitar, back in the corner, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously I have a bunch of Selmies because that's kind of what I do. But with those, so you're kind of all in for less than, like, even with 2, you're all in for equipment at less than like 60 grand right now, which is don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money. Like, I'm not claiming that it's nothing, but I mean, you can do a lot of production with that.
It's amazing. Right?
I mean, that's Rover, right?
We joked about, instead of getting the one shot, let's just buy, 16 of those, hand ones, and we're, it's not quite the same, but
Hey, so it was a good question, so I'm gonna go back to it. Somebody asked, what chocolatier is killing it in the world? What do you think? Who are some of the people that you look at that are like, wow, they're doing cool stuff, domestic, foreign, whatever?
Enrique Rivera, that's it. He's the man. I mean, he's the first person I saw doing sprayed stuff, with this planet thing. Of course, a Japanese hotel took that concept, and they're named Le Eclat, so we get letters like, hey, how can we buy these planet chocolates? And I always say, we have this little spiel, we just cut and paste and send it off to them. Like, if you really want to buy it from the people who invented this, buy it from Enrique Rivera. He's amazing. Raschudi's, like, he's the OG now almost. Christopher Elbow's amazing. Burdick's amazing. I love
one of the names I throw into that mix right now is Ramon Perez and Pure out in Sacramento. I don't know if you've perused that. That's a box you should Google and order because his stuff's great.
Definitely. I mean, they're popping up all over, and we're sort of staying the course and doing what we do. We love the sprayed stuff. I just think it should be mixed up. It's kind of like when El Bulli came out with foam and everyone was using foam, or in Hollywood when everyone did the wire act and things. It's a tool, but it shouldn't be done every time, in my small, humble opinion. I like Roger, how he does. He's embraced the new style, but he's also doing the old school stuff.
And that was something that I talked with Chris Harvey a couple of weeks ago, right? And Chris and I, we were having a real conversation. Chris is a big proponent of, he does a lot of spray and does a lot of gloss. But
amazing stuff, yeah.
He also does a lot of enrobed with more traditional techniques. From a chocolatier standpoint, it balances some cost, but it also gives you really nice variation in your box and in your pieces, right? And I think when I open a box of chocolate and when I think about the chocolatiers that I like, I want there to be variation of texture and shape, both inside the piece and outside the piece, right? And I think my only ding on like everything that's molded is it's expensive to make, right? I mean, relatively compared to like enrobing, right? I mean, like, the truth be told, the amount of time that it takes me to make 244 pieces on a guitar and enrobed is a lot less than me making 244 molded bonbons, unless you have a one shot.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's why I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, and I have a one shot too, right?
But also, not to interrupt, but let's say we're doing our salted caramel, and I forget what the yield is, but there's always going to be one where the salt falls off, so we can't sell it.
Right.
So we sell it to a gelato baker. That is also a cost. So we're finding when we're doing the airbrushed, the eggs and the hearts at different holidays, we're getting 99.9% yield. I mean, it's crazy. The old school stuff, the ganache might be a little soft, or this, or it might have a little air bubble on the side, so you know, it's the airbrush stuff. We love it. I mean, it's great. We can
Right.
bang that stuff out all day. You know, we can do 8 to 10,000 pieces a day if we want.
All right. Are you, so we've been asking everybody this question. Are you in the polish your mold camp or not polish the mold camp?
It's if you if you temper your chocolate properly, you don't. Now, I mean, the big boys have a whole room, almost half the size of my whole warehouse. Just they have this giant anlage for mold washing. So the big boys wash their molds all the time. But if you do it right and you're small and quote unquote artisanal, you know, just scrape them well and work clean and make sure your cocoa butter and your ganache is well tempered. Obviously, your chocolate is. So.
Right. You temper all your ganaches?
Yes.
Yeah, I started using the easy temper for tempering my ganaches. So
I need to play with that.
I'm injecting 2 to 3% of basically beta crystals into my ganaches. It's what I found is it really shortens the time in the molded from when I can cap.
Right.
But what it really does for me on my framed ganaches, it really creates a really nice crystal structure so that when you cut, you get that.
Yep.
That's the only French I really know is.
It's interesting to see like the old school, since I worked in all these like different countries, like, the French love to do cold infusions overnight. They love to have their ganaches sit 24 hours. And the Germans, they work a little bit faster. It seems like the Belgium or somewhere in between. And there's no real wrong or right,
Both sort of physically they're in between and like metaphorically they're in between.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's as close as I'm going to get to a Maginot Line joke in our conversation. So that was my really heady poli-sci major joke that, my poli-sci degree isn't totally wasted joke for the day.
But yeah, you asked about machinery. So, I mean.
I didn't. I just said you guys have a lot of different machinery. I was looking for a sell me plug. Like, to be completely honest with you, I got to remember who I work for.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm not saying it because Selmy's, if you probably knew me when I was like, if it's not German or Swiss, it sucks. When
we first met, yeah, I mean everything in your shop the first time that I was allowed in was
and I'm like,
no, that resentment's over, I swear. I'm not now. I just like give you crap.
Italian machines, oh my god, I wouldn't like, they're horrible, blah blah blah. And I've like, wow, why should I spend X amount on this when I can get the machine? And it's not, people discuss cheap versus inexpensive, but the Selmy is amazing. I mean, so you can do a lot of and we have it just to do like little, almost like R&D, like little seasonal things and stuff. We don't do one shot, obviously.
So I just saw Ruth's question. I'm not going to forget it, but I may. It's about chocolate. So remind me in a second. It's about chocolate.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's a difference between putting an Awima one shot into your shop and putting a Selmy one shot. Like I can't tell you they're the same, right? So there's a question about service. I'm going to answer that one too. But I mean, dollar for dollar, right? It's about dollars and quality and those types of pieces. And this next piece is a question, like one of the reasons that I think we've had a lot of success with Selmy in North America is because we do have full service here, right? We have parts in North America. We have 2 factory trained technicians. We have a training center here. We're able to provide all those things that you would get from Osted in Europe, right? I mean, Osted, I did pick like the King Mac Daddy. I didn't, but I mean, Awima. Like if you're in Switzerland and you need Awima support, it's there, right? I mean, it's easy. Where some of these other manufacturers, it's a lot more difficult in the United States.
I say Vema, you say Awima, but I mean, Jason Catterley, which most people in the industry know, is the most. I mean, he's an amazing rep. So
totally,
if there's any issues, I mean, we got it in sometimes 24 hours. So if anything, he's also a rep for some other machinery that we use. So so that isn't the biggest problem, but it's just a night to come up and have a day of playtime with you and in your lab, and it's just, they're just good solid machines. And I wanted to hate them, but then I'm like, oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
So somebody asked about chocolate.
Okay.
You use a variety of chocolates as well.
We do. I mean, we're making more and more. We got a McIntyre last year, so we're having fun with that. I mean, basically
But commercial chocolate. I mean, you've always worked with. It's specific to projects and specific to what you're doing,
yeah, I
right?
mean, cocoa berry is amazing. I mean, it's really what you know grew up working with, and obviously in Belgium and places like that, you know, we used a lot of cocoa berry. The Republic of Cacao is nice, and the trip is amazing, by the way, Brian.
Thanks.
It's amazing.
Thanks.
It was life altering. Their trip too.
You
Yeah,
know
for
what?
that stuff.
So, Chris, if you've been paying attention to Brian's like cast here over the last
I
month,
have.
and not just you, but everybody that's on, everybody knows at some point in this conversation, I have to bemoan the fact that the one thing that you know that this has been really hard about. I mean, like this whole world thing is that I was scheduled to go to Ecuador
Life changing.
Thanks. I was supposed to go to Ecuador with our friends from Republica de Cacao, and I was actually on the phone with Alex the other day, and Alex said that I will be invited back on the next trip, which is good because the JetBlue credit landed in my personal JetBlue account. So,
There we go.
you know, they have no excuse. The airplane ticket's already paid for, and I have the money. So
No, it's you know, all joking aside, it's pretty amazing trip.
yeah,
So,
but I mean, they're doing some cool stuff too. I mean, I think Valrona's doing some really interesting things with that brand, right? I mean, it's not Valrhona, right?
Right.
I mean, it's a different chocolate. It still is a great functioning chocolate, right? But they've created different flavor profiles that are very not French.
I think they might argue with me, and I hope I don't upset them, but it's sort of like seeing, you know, Valrhona has, you know, if you're a Mass Brothers fan, you know, Valrhona has a certain flavor profile, and they're trying to get away almost an artisan, almost craft chocolate. It's different than craft, but you know, they're sort of going in that direction, and I kind of like that idea. We obviously are huge fans of Felclean, not just because Susan's on there, but and just for everything from their packaging, the way they source everything is an amazing company. We use a little bit of Valrhona for certain things, but we're trying to do more and more production in-house, to be honest. I mean, you know, we just keep upping that, and that seems to be working out well
Right.
for
So
us.
there are two questions. The first one was flavor or appearance, and I'm assuming that's back to our conversation about chocolate, and I'm going to say both. But flavors first, appearance is second in my world.
Unfortunately, yeah. You know, I mean, I like some like goulash doesn't look very appetizing, but some of the best food around. So I think you can hide a lot behind the airbrush. I mean, they're beautiful, but then there's no substance behind it. Then you know,
Right.
unless it's a gift. I mean, a lot of chocolate companies have turned into almost gift giving companies versus chocolate companies.
And the next question was about, is that a Circle V thing? And I assume that talks about the trip to Republica. And, you know, we were, full disclosure, I mean, we work with pretty much all the chocolate companies in North America. You know, the machines that I have like 15 tempering units in the lab, in the series of labs, and I have, you know, almost that many chocolates in the machines, right? So I have Valrhona in some machines, I have Blummer in machines, I have Guittard, I have all kinds of stuff here. So, you know, I think for us, it was, the reason that I was invited was because, you know, we're partners with Valrhona on some stuff. They sponsor some of our classes. And I think just having me have a better understanding about their products helps me with their customers when they are selling me customers.
Right. I think
or their bulk customers.
I think it's important that, you know, it's people are like, I'm Valrhona, or I'm Cocoa Berry, or I'm like, hey, guys, like, or I only drink, you know, this coffee and the other coffee, all other coffees, or craft beer. I only drink this. Guys, I mean, there's too many great things. I mean, they all do different things, and you can use them for all different things. So, you know, Cocoa Berry has their little niche, Felclean, Valrhona. So these people that are so adamant about using, I'm a Verona guy, is like, or a Cocoa Berry guy. It's just, they're all amazing stuff. They're just completely different.
Cool. And this next question is like one of the best questions that I've like seen on any of our Chocolatier chats. So I'm asking it, and now I can't make the words get away from your face. Sorry. But are there any trends that have come up recently that you simply do not have any interest in making yourself, and why?
I think we're trying to work around the airbrushing. I mean, there's so many people doing it really well. You know, some of them we like Elbow or Stick With Me, or I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're trying to stick to chocolate. You know, it's, you know, a shameless plug is what was considered the best truffle in America was literally our chocolate from Peru, and it was like buttercream, that's it.
Right.
Like there was no airbrushing, there was no that. And so that goes back to flavor versus appearance, So I like it. I think it's great technique. It's just something that we're trying to balance a little bit of that to staying like traditional, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's that's hard, right? Because I'm with you. There's some people that are doing some really unbelievable things, and so we're doing these demos on Tuesday, right? And I kind of like showing technique stuff, and there was some questions about, can you show airbrushing? And I'm decent, you know what I mean? Like I'm okay at that, but like I'm intimidated about doing an airbrushing technique on the internet right now, because there are people that like are friggin' rock stars at that process, right? And like I can have questions about then how do you make that profitable and all that stuff that, like, from the chocolate side, I don't get. Like if you're putting 6 colors on a chocolate, I don't understand with the amount of time how you can charge enough, right? And so I'm not going to get into that conversation, right? But like, what am I going to show you that's not, already out there and not, on Instagram every 2 minutes?
The wow factor is hard to.
Right, and that doesn't mean that I can't like do nice work, right? But you're right. I mean, like, what are you competing against? And I don't think that that's just always a mask for chocolate that's not as good, right? But there are some people in the industry, who that comes first and flavor comes second, right? And that doesn't mean their flavor's not good. It just means it comes second. And I guess for me, I sort of think about chocolate. I want it to be, I want to be left with what it tastes like rather than what it looks like. And I mean, I think that's where, we talked to Elbow last week, right? And I think Chris has done a really good job, and Chris Harvey the week before have done a really good job of balancing what it looks like with what it tastes like. And those guys do really nice work, right?
Well, it's hard when you see also a great idea. I mean, everyone's working with domes now. So if we're to start doing a dome line, are we copying someone else, or is it now become, when does something become a classic? People come into my shop like, well, that's a very classic flavor. So
there he goes. Chris is back. I missed your answer there because it stuttered.
Where was it? With the lavender, someone will come into my shop and they'll have
people
lavender.
Come into my shop and
they think lavender is like amazing, and I'm like, but that's so classic. So it's it's the thing with domes, domes are amazing to work with because it's just a great sort of so much opportunity there. But am I copying someone else? Am I copying Stick With Me? If right. It's a tough decision of, you don't want to take other people's creativity,
Yeah, Chocolate Parade just made a comment. It's got to be beautiful inside out.
Well said.
Both matter. And I think that's a really good way of putting it. So what's ahead for your business? What's the next new frontier now that you've like tackled,
Had you answered me that 2 months ago, or?
I'm asking you today. I know, surviving, right? I mean, honestly, right now you want to keep your people working, and you want to be there in 6 months, right?
I mean, besides the fact that people are dying, and New York is just devastated and things like that, and you don't want to make light of that. But so when I say it's an exciting time, it's like we got to be creative. We got to be, we don't know if cruise lines are going to come back. We don't know if hotels. We don't know if we're going to go into just a mail order business. We don't know if no one will be working. So business like us no longer exists. So it's really interesting. We're sort of sitting and sort of coming up with different ideas. We do a lot of projects for 3-star Michelin kitchens in New York, and we don't know what they're. So I like to be optimistic and think that some people are over like doom and gloom and things will spring back. But we're relatively small, so we have the flexibility. We have very little overhead. So it's we just keep plugging along. The one good thing is that we've maintained all our full-time workers. We've continued on healthcare, and we have a matching 401k and all that, very European style employment agreement. So that's but they've been the lifeblood of Eclat. They have, without them, we wouldn't have lasted a month already. So it's, they're, chapeau to them.
Yeah, your people
You know.
have been there with you a long time too, for the most part. I mean, anytime I feel I've been down, it's sort of the same group of people. It's for the most
They
part, like,
usually they usually leave in a week or they stay forever.
yeah. I
Because
mean,
they're
I
kind of like,
recognize a lot
oh,
of faces. Like every time I'm there, I feel like I don't know everybody's name, but they look familiar and they look like they've been there. They remind. Maybe it's just you only hire one type of person.
slightly damaged. No, I didn't say that.
No, because you
No,
haven't offered me a job yet. So but
yeah, we'll talk afterwards.
okay.
But it's interesting. I'm not. There's different ways of we're kind of going into leadership style, and I'm still very European. I think I'm not always easy to work for. But if you have an issue with your family, or if something happens, or you need time off for your kids, or if a payment you miscalculate, like I'm the first one to slide over. So a lot of people are warm and fuzzy with their bosses, but then when the shit hits fan, they're not there for them. So I'm a little bit, backwards that way. So the people, they say, well, Chris is a hard ass. Can I say hard ass? Yeah. Hard
Well, you
ass.
said so. I think you're in with hard ass. You're good.
Okay. It'll stop
Sorry,
there.
Kyle.
But
Hey, apologize to Kyle, who's going to have to edit that out when we go to YouTube because he's
sorry,
very
Kyle.
worried about that. Our bad,
Sorry,
Kyle.
But yeah, it's everyone talks about this, but we've done that since the first 15 years. That everyone, for a business our size to have full health care is something really important to us. But but I get off track. Should be interesting to see what happens. I mean, we're going to continue the craft chocolate in that style. We really enjoy that. I think it's part of the program we have to do. It's not the best model per se. I mean, you can buy amazing chocolate for the people that just do chocolate. So for us to do it and buy beans, for half a container is a lot more expensive than those guys buying it by, like Blummer buying it by 20 containers. So we're just going to see what happens, and we're flexible enough, and we got the team that's flexible that we can just sort of play it by ear. That's not really the answer they wanted, I'm sure, but there are companies that have been very successful and have gone just to ship, wholesale or to internet sales. So, that's also a possibility, as much as we love having stores.
Yeah, I mean, I think the market, the market's definitely gotten more crowded, right? I mean, we've talked about some people that, I mean, the hard part about this business is that we're talking about people that we like, right? Mm-hmm. And in some ways, they're not in some ways, in lots of ways, they're competitors, right? I mean, the internet is a wide open landscape, and in theory, I can go online and order chocolate from wherever. I mean, I don't have to, if I'm from Philadelphia, I don't have to truck out to Westchester to get chocolate. There's a handful of really great chocolatiers in the area, and then I can go on the internet and get whatever I want, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're about, maybe I'm just don't know who's out there. I'm trying to not watch what other people are doing, because I think that sort of gets into your subconscious and then comes out in another form. So it's really important to me that not to watch too carefully what other people are doing. But there's probably 6 that come to mind. They're just doing. We mentioned 3 of them, and you mentioned another one that I'll look into. There's some. I feel we're still sort of a small of the guys who are like my size and doing some damage and can do some production. They're not too many.
No, but there are. But I mean, just in Philadelphia, right? I mean, I probably comparable size. Art could classified as artisan chocolatier. Like who you're up for against in Philadelphia Magazine for Chocolatier of the Year. I mean, there's
they stopped doing that category, but
I mean, there's definitely 4 or 5 people that I can think of in Philadelphia alone, right? And that's not saying that you're better or they're better. I mean, I'm just thinking about sort of like the same kind of model in some ways. And I think, as a chocolate maker or a chocolatier, a confection maker, you're competing against people like that. But the reality of it is you're competing against, Walgreens too in some ways, right? I mean,
well, it's worldwide actually. I mean, I remember Oliver Copenura when he hired me. He's like, I'm taking a risk that you won't go back to America and start your own business because we're all competing. And he was right. And so, we had an instance when I worked in Japan, and we had someone actually stage from us at our place, and he took my filled Mondial verbatim. I mean, verbatim. He goes, we're not in the same competition. We're not. I'm like, no, because we also sell in Japan. So he was saying we're not. It's okay to steal our concepts because we're not competing against each other, and it's worldwide. I mean,
Yeah, what's funny, so what's interesting is that Susan just noted, like, Susan, you've become like the third guest. I feel like I should invite you into the conversation, that you missed the experience of the store meeting Chris in person. And I think it was said kind of with tongue in cheek too. But yeah, that's a point, right? But right now, there isn't meeting Chris in person, right? So that complicates the paradigm. And then one of the questions was, is it hard to build a brand? And, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that you got to make really good chocolate. Like that's sort of the no-brainer in the conversation, right? But then over here, you somehow got to build it with something else.
This is another, bottle of wine in 4 hours discussion about brand. I mean, you see, dare I bring up Mass Brothers and brilliant marketing, brilliant branding. There's so many fences you can get on with them, but it's pretty amazing that they had nothing behind them, but they were able to brand really well. So, unfortunately, as a chef, you think that the food is more important than the service, but often the service is what people come back for. So
it's a little bit of both. I got invited to do a lecture today at a culinary school in New York, and not the culinary school in New York. I'm not quite there yet. And I was talking with a group of students that were wrapping up their program after 2 years, and they're in their chocolate class. And we were talking about that very thing, right? That, like, you and I are food people. Like, you want to talk to me about my top 5 life experiences. They're around food, right? They're a restaurant or a place I visited, and there's a food story. But there's a branding, that branding piece, fits into that, but it doesn't fit into that in some ways, right? And I think that's the challenge, is, you've been on the inside building this one brand where, I have that really fortunateness of being able to watch lots of people trying to build businesses over the last 15 years, from when I was at Ooster through to now being with Tom Rick, and have helped people build businesses with my own company in the middle of that. And it's hard work, man. Like, it's really friggin' hard. And I don't think, like, there isn't a path that says you're going to be successful, right? Especially, I mean, chocolate even more so. Like,
there's so many additional costs that people don't calculate. If you say it's 22 cents per piece to make, but when we get done in the year and then we see our profit margins, it's not, so it's really tough. And it's also, the brand gets, I'd love to reinvent our brand every year, but that's not a good business move. So
no, and that's where I get asked that question a lot. Like, why don't you open your own chocolate business? And I'm like, because if I had to make the same 12 items every day, I'd go crazy. I can't do, like, I don't have that skill set to make sure that everything's perfect. Like, I know a woman who was the pastry chef at Buddakan in Philadelphia for a long time, and Buddakan's dessert menu hasn't changed, right? Like, that bento box and that, like, those 5 items, there's like one item, right, that changes, but those 5 items. And so I was talking to her about it. I'm like, how do you do that every day? And she goes, because my goal is to make it better than I made it yesterday. Right.
That's the Japanese, it's almost easy to be creative, but to do perfection every day is where the difficult. I mean, I can come up with different recipes every day. That's not, but how do you continue producing consistent and at a high level? And that's where the real skill comes in.
Day in, day out, right? And, there are people along the way that I see, that true craftsmanship, whether it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night, whether it's Monday or it's Friday, or it's Christmas, it doesn't matter. I'm pretty good friends with, like, Dominic Hall from Hall's Chocolatier, right?
Yeah.
And they're a classic Swiss model, right? Where this is what it looks like today. This is what it tastes like today. Tomorrow, this is what it looks like tomorrow, and this is what it tastes like tomorrow. And there's no middle ground, right? So for Dominic, there's no middle ground about it. Either it is or it isn't.
We tend to, we want it to look machine made, even though it's not machine made. And I think that's sort of our goal. And I almost feel that some people are, and sloppy is not the right word, but they want to give their product sort of a handmade look. so they know people, it reminds people that actually someone took the care and made this by hand.
Yeah, and I think that's funny that when I worked for Ooster, we had problems with that, where we would have handmade products, and our customers would tell us it didn't look handmade. You know, can you make, like, they shouldn't all be exactly the same. Can every third one look a little different? You know, it's like, and you tell that to a Swiss, you know, confectioner. Hey, could you mess up every third one? Do you mind like making the third one be a little off center? Ooh.
Yeah, I worked in Switzerland. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that for you. Like, okay, can you have somebody different make every third one then, so that
that's
it's
why,
the same?
yeah. By Copenhagen, we did all garnishes by hand. I mean, they're these wonderful machines. They'll do perfect lines on them, but then exactly for that reason, it's perfect. When we don't want, you know, what's the wabi sabi, the term in Japan where it's a little bit of imperfection? Well, they take a perfect pot and like hit it, so there's a little bit of imperfection. You know, perfection is not always beautiful.
All right.
Slight imperfection is good.
Here's our like 4-minute warning, because like I learned that if I go over like 58 minutes, it cuts me off. So we've got like 4 minutes, and I don't like, you know, these have been fun for me because I don't have an agenda with everybody we've been talking to. So, you know, if there's anything you need to get in the last now 3 minutes, you're up.
No, I think we've covered a lot. I mean, I think it's, you know, one of the things we're looking at and what inspires us is sort of the industrial design aspect. And, you know, the one thing about the airbrushing is it's so labor intensive that how can we make something that's as beautiful that's not labor intensive? I mean, you know, our parallel bars, or there are some other things we do that are actually really efficient to make, but have that wow factor. So, you know, we're trying to, you know, creativity, but also have production that's, it's easy to make something complicated, I guess. And I see pastry chefs that go into the chocolate making, and they're always like, you know, 16 flavors and da da da, and they're like, they always make things really complicated because that's, I mean, pastry chefs want many like different components in their dishes. So, and so the trick is scale it down, make it not simple, stupid, but get the same effect. You know, I'm always amazed by, you know, the plates at Le Rodin. It's, you know, some of the dishes are so simple and they're made that way for numerous reasons, but also the efficiency in plating. But you're not losing anything by that. It's just absolutely elegance and knowing when to stop and when, you know, back in the day, we know we're the same age, we'd reckon, and, you know, parsley on the rim and all. You don't need that. Like, less is more. And that's, it's so hard for us to like, okay, let's take this and then let's remove one element. Right. And how can we produce as efficiently? Because that's why, you know, people that work for us, you know, we have a couple of people that work for other chocolate companies, a very well-known one in Philly. And he's like, how do you guys produce so much stuff? It's like, because we're like on it. We're like very efficient, you know. But it's not frantic. It's not flailing. It's just like, boom, boom. It's just like, you know, and that's how we can produce what we produce in a day and have the quality we have, you know, and have fun, hopefully, you know.
Cool. Speaking of which, I'll let you get back at it.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
I'll try and come up there when there's a giant like tornado storm and I have to jump on the next plane back.
Got it. Yeah, and hey, so good luck, you know, weathering the storm. I think hopefully we're headed in the right direction on this one. And we're here for you if you need anything.
Let me know. Great.
And thanks for spending time with us.
Always a pleasure.
Make sure you check out Chris's, it's at Eclat. Is that
at Eclat Chocolate? At
Eclat Chocolate. And then they have also a Sassy webpage that you can check out, or on Facebook. You can order there if you are not familiar with them. And then with us, this conversation, if you missed any of it, will be on YouTube at some point in the next couple days. Depends on marketing, how they're doing. But check us out there. And you can check out Tomark. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. bdonaghy@tomark.com. I'm also available on Instagram at Brian Donaghy is my name there. And I think that's it. Thanks, man. Thanks, Fruition. Hey, Fruition was here.
Hey.
So thanks.
Hey, Brian.
Not me, Brian. That Brian.
No, we love Fruition, obviously.
You guys are friends. We didn't even talk about the craft chocolate side.
Wait, should I do a shameless plug? Here.
Go ahead. You got like 30 seconds.
Here's our No Way Fruition bar that we did with Fruition. So. Didn't forget about you, Brian. So.
All right, man. Hey, Chris, thanks a bunch. Appreciate the time.
Okay.
We'll talk
cheers.
soon. Peace.
Bye.